Hello, everybody. Kuroda,
Bacon
James,
Mob. James.
James Bacon Mob, whatever. Welcome back to Kuroda Mob News. Let me do that again. Welcome back to Kuroda Mob News, not Kuroda Rob News.
That's a good name, too.
Yeah, I guess so. It's great to be back again, although it will be for the last time for a little while, but yeah, you want to tell them what we're doing today, James?
Sure. I guess Rob was trying to think of something that would really, excite me and get my juices flowing. So he
I
picked
can think of quite a
the
few
top five
things.
independently developed video games of all time.
Top five indie games, guys. I thought it'd be really fun to do. James has been a big indie game fan for a long, long time. I've, in recent years, really become a fan too of a lot of indie games, and time to give the indie some love, man. You know, so there's tons and tons of great games. I could see this being really hard, especially for you, because I mean, I know you've been playing a lot of these games for many years, and it's a broad topic. So narrowing it down to just five it was kind of hard for me too, honestly.
Yeah, like I started out thinking about what games are the most replayable, like that I go back to the most. And then I started thinking about like the games that like kind of made me start thinking more about indie games, and like the ones that kind of like made me realize how good indie games could be.
Hmm.
I think you got to mention Cave Story. Obviously, that was like one of the earliest indie games ever. That was certainly the game that made me stand up and realize that like one person could make a game themselves that's like an NES tribute, and it can be amazing, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of ended up just narrowing it down to five out of those. Like, I made a few lists, and then I kind of just narrowed it down to five from those.
Same. Were you? Was Cave Story like an honorable mention for you?
I would definitely mention that just because, like, it's almost, I almost think, like, no other indie games might exist without Cave Story, because it was,
Hmm.
like, such a pioneer. Like, it was, like, a free download on PC made by one Japanese guy that, like, existed before Xbox Live Arcade or WiiWare or anything.
It's hard with lists like this because people, well, at least for this point, taking people's opinions into account, do you make the list based on impact, importance, that kind of thing, or do you base it off personal taste? I went off personal taste. I think any of
Yeah.
mine could be. I mean, the ones that I picked are all pretty big, obvious ones. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by any of the ones on the list. Maybe the order or something. I don't know, but at least none of the ones that are in there. I think if I were to do an honorable mention that isn't on mine, though, it
Mhm.
would be Minecraft. And
Right, yeah. Good.
I mean, you can't get much bigger of a game these days than Minecraft. It's really, Rachel and I were talking about that earlier. She was watching your. I'll shamelessly plug for you the the Minecraft video that you made. You've made a couple of them now, and she was saying it's pretty incredible how popular it still is, and it's become like a multi-generational game. And I mean, God, I mean, I think probably more than almost any other indie game. It's really transcended into the mainstream and just huge.
Oh,
So, I mean, I guess you'd be hard pressed to call it an indie game these days because it's owned by Microsoft. But it started out from humble beginnings, so you know.
yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. Like, it doesn't really qualify anymore, technically, but it
Hmm.
totally started out as a one-man project, as a labor of love.
Yeah,
And it got
and
popular before he even finished it. Like, it was still in alpha, I think, when it got
yeah,
popular.
yeah, and it's continuously built um, on on its popularity, and I can't really think of another game, at least indie game like that, that's as huge. I'm sure there's other ones, but
Or, yeah. Or this just, like, made waves, like early access,
yeah.
open world crafting mechanics, like, all that stuff has just, like, made its way into everything.
Oh yeah, total pioneer.
Mhm. But yeah, if we're doing our honorable mentions first, I do want to mention one more game, if
Go
you don't
ahead, go
mind.
for it.
This was one of the ones I had in my most replayable category when I was first narrowing it down. It's a mobile game called Threes.
Hmm.
It's probably my favorite mobile game ever made, and unfortunately, it got eclipsed by a game that most people probably have heard of called 2048.
Hmm.
But if you like 2048 and haven't played Threes, play Threes. Trust me. That's all I have to say.
I got one more, just because you and I have a little tiny bit of personal history, and should mention your channel because it was the first time I'd heard about this game, Death Road to Canada, which almost made my list. That game is just really fun and just such a unique idea for a game. And I don't know, I really enjoyed when you streamed that. I bought it on the eShop like immediately, and I've had some fun with it since. Like, just such a cool, unique idea, and I love the music. It's a great game.
I gotta do another stream of that game because like naming the characters after the people in the chat and stuff was just
Yeah,
so
that was a great move. Another one I really liked from. I don't mean to go on and on. Another one I remember watching you play that I discovered on your stream was Tower 57, which I've since purchased on Steam. And that's nice. Another fun little game that I think is really good. Another one where the music is just incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, so many indie games have amazing music.
Yeah.
One thing that was like so cool to see was like when I was in high school, I used to listen to a lot of Overclocked Remix, which is just like video game music in tons of different styles. Like somebody might remix something from Zelda in like a folk style, or something from Chrono Trigger in like a dance electronic style or something. And like a ton of those like prolific remixers from that site went on to become indie game composers, which was like the coolest thing ever.
I know,
One of them
that's
even
great.
went on to make The Legend of Zelda Cadence of Hyrule. Like he started out remixing Zelda music and then got to make official Zelda music.
It's so good.
Like
So
the
good.
dream, right?
Love it. And I like how much, before we get into our top five, maybe the last point I would make is I like how the industry actually does really support, at least they put on a good show that they support indie developers. I mean, the fact that, there's always categories at the Game Awards. A lot of those games usually are available on pretty much every platform. I mean, Nintendo does their own Nindies Direct, which I love, and yeah, it's great that there's so much love for indie games, and it's important. I don't know if it's just because in the video game world, I'm sure developers remember being in that, in that situation, the early stages of trying to make it and trying to putting your heart and soul into a game. I don't know what it is, but I think it's great. I think it's great that indie developers get a lot of support.
Yeah, I remember like it seemed like first it was Steam that really kind of like started welcoming them in and like featuring their games, and then Microsoft kind of jumped on board with Xbox Live Arcade. I remember when the PS4 launched, they made like a huge deal about saying that they loved indies and that they have support indies on their platform, and then it just kept going. Like once the Switch came out, like the Wii U, they made a bit of an effort to promote indies on there, but the Switch was just like the perfect console for them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The PC at that point as like the premier indie platform.
As I said to you off camera, I probably play on my Switch indie games more than anything else. Even more than, in some cases, first-party Nintendo stuff, because it's just so easy to pick up and play. Like, I don't know, I think a lot of those indie games were made to be played on a handheld.
Yeah, it works super well. Like the whole pick up and play, like old school nature of a lot of those games, that like kind of philosophy of design that they use is just perfect for a portable system.
Totally agree. That being said, good people, we each chose 5 games, 5 indie games that we love. Do you want to start? You want me to start? I don't really care. Number 5.
You can start if you want.
Okay. My number 5 is a game that is, I don't know, I might aggravate a few people with this pick because it's such an obvious one. And I almost didn't include this on my list, but I thought about it. I've had a lot of fun playing this game, especially in recent years, and I'm playing it on the channel, and it's Among Us, actually.
Okay.
Okay, okay, I know like some people don't like the graphic style and stuff, and Does it? Is it super innovative? Nah, but it's just real fun to play. It's one of my favorite multiplayer games released in recent years, and I don't know. I've just had a lot of fun doing streams playing that game, and what in the board game world, which I've really not talked about much in on the channel. But God, you and I have played board games so many times with our friends and stuff, and at parties and whatnot. And I was just talking to a friend of ours today who's a big board game guy, and I've always loved those secret identity games, stuff like Shadowhunters and Mafia and stuff. And the fact that there's a game version of that, and you know, you stream that and you play with people, it's just a great like party type of game. It has really taken off. I think it's kind of funny that it didn't come out in 2018 and it was like 2 years later suddenly it just meteored.
Yeah.
It's like kind of crazy.
Some YouTuber and then it just took off, and now there's like an animated series being made. There's like a new Fortnite mode that's just like Among Us. Like, it's everywhere now.
And I know it's kind of easy to pick on the thing that's popular, and that's fine. But I gotta be honest, I've had a lot of fun playing it, and the fact that you can pretty much get it for free on mobile or for very, very little money. They don't really, you know, go crazy with microtransactions or anything like that. Like, it's a simple game, it's fun. Yeah, I don't know. I just have had a lot of fun with it. So number 5 for me is Among Us.
Yeah, I mean, it's popular for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the memes have definitely gotten better, but the original game is still great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've got mine out of order, so I'm just trying to figure out the order I'm actually doing.
Go for it.
I guess my number 5 would be, it's called One Finger Death Punch.
Yes.
Have you heard of this game?
Yeah.
I think I played it on my channel.
I think you did.
I believe it was originally an XNA indie game on the Xbox 360, which was like a separate category from Xbox Live Arcade. It was like even smaller indie games made by like really amateur teams. And you know the game Try Not to Fart?
Yes.
Right? The same company made Try Not to Fart. They're called Silver Dollar Games. And they basically made a bunch of like gag games, like Try Not to Fart, in order to fund their dream project, which was One Finger Death Punch. And it's like super, like, again, like pretty simple, but it's just so well executed and so satisfying. Like, it's literally a 2-button game, and it's really just a rhythm game. But you're just watching these insane action sequences play out on screen, going on between just stickmen. But the way they animate it is so over the top, and the announcer is so funny that like it doesn't matter that it's just stickmen. It's just like so entertaining and so like satisfying. It's honestly like, in terms of like the raw game design behind it, I think it's one of the best games I've ever played, because it's just like so satisfying to play.
Very nice.
And yeah. I guess the announcer, I don't know if the announcer is actually Asian. He definitely speaks with like a very stereotypical Asian accent. But that's probably my only knock against it. But it's such a great game. It was actually Total Biscuit, RIP, who originally recommended that game.
Oh,
one
nice.
Of his, I think, top 10 games of the year videos. And I tried it out, and I was just like, damn, he's right. This is amazing.
I haven't played it. I've seen like a bit of video of it and stuff, so I have to try that out.
Yeah, it's usually on sale for pretty cheap too, and there's been a sequel as well.
Cool.
It's just a
nice pick.
Thank you.
My number 4 is, all mine are kind of obvious. Maybe not number 3, but number 4 for me is a game that I remember winning a bunch of awards, and I was like, I gotta play this because everybody says it's great. And it's Celeste.
Yes.
I loved that game. Same team that made Towerfall, I think, right? Gorgeous game. Love the soundtrack. I have it saved on Spotify. I actually listen to it occasionally. I I don't know what you would call it, platformer sort of, maybe not really Metroidvania, kind of like a weird, very difficult game, like incredibly difficult. I love the mechanics of it, the jumping and the jumping in midair, and you have to be really precise with how you jump and land, and you get some really complicated levels where you really got to be. I always love games like that where you just have to learn the pattern, and eventually you'll die about 50 times, but you get through it. God, I must have died thousands of times in Celeste, but I did eventually beat it, and I do love the kind of message of it. There's a lot of stuff about mental health, and just sort of the main character trying to find herself, and it's kind of dark and creepy too at times, and just a great game, beautifully made. It's got that sort of pixely kind of nostalgic feel to it, but in this, well, I don't know if it was made in when did it come out? 2018, 2019?
I think it was 2018 because I remember it was one of my games of the year in my video that I made. I think that was the last year.
Yeah, it was. I think it got nominated for Game of the Year actually.
Game Awards. Yeah.
But yeah, just one of the best modern indie games that I've personally played. I thought it really blew me away. I really loved it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever finished that for some reason, but
it's a hard game
too. Amazing, visual design, amazing music.
It took a lot for me to beat that game. I'm not gonna lie. I had to come back to it a few times. I'm like, I can't be there's times I was getting so frustrated because you just gotta you get these really complex levels with these spikes, and you're trying to go down and up and down and then jump off this wall, and it was crazy, but it was really fun. Very satisfying when you beat a level.
Yeah, there was a lot of comparisons to Super Meat Boy when that came out, and that was probably the best platformer I had played since Super Meat Boy.
Yeah, I could see that. I could totally see that.
Alright, my number 4 is pretty famous. It's a roguelike space exploration game called Faster Than Light.
Cool.
I have that on my channel as well. And I think when it came out, people basically described it as the best Star Trek game that isn't actually a Star Trek game to ever come out. Because it's literally just about diverting power from engines to shields or weapons, and having somebody at the weapons station to make them more effective, and having a weapons officer who's more proficient at stuff. But then if your weapons bay gets attacked and there's oxygen seeping out of it, then you have to send that guy to your medical bay, and then you have to have the engineer come in and operate the weapons. And it's just you can literally target different parts of other ships, and it's always different every time you play, and you're kind of just going through different sectors of the galaxy from point to point, but there's just this constant wave of this rebel fleet that's chasing you, so you have to get through it quickly, otherwise it's not game over if the rebel fleet catches you, but then you have to fight a ship that will destroy you in 10 seconds if you don't get away. So you'll be waiting for your engines to charge while there's a huge fleet attacking you, and then they'll hit your engines, and then the recharge will go back down. And you're no. It's just such tense.
It's very tense,
It's really good. I played a lot of that game, and the music is so good, so relaxing and atmospheric, and it evokes old NES chip tune music, but it still sounds modern. It's really good.
I'm telling you, I mean, I've mentioned, I think, pretty much, each game I've talked about already. Those composers, a lot of the indie games have just such amazing music. His
name's Ben Prenti, composer. It's one of my favorite soundtracks in any game ever.
Great. So nice. Anything else on that, or should I go to 3?
Just that I also love watching people stream it, I guess. That was probably how I think that was how I found out about it. Actually, I was watching, it was probably Lethal Frag streaming it.
I'll have to add I have to add video footage from whenever you streamed it on your channel in here somewhere.
Yeah. You can actually find, if you look hard enough, you can find me fighting a rebel fleet and having them attack my engines.
All right, I'll try to find that clip if I can. My number 3 is a game I've talked about on this channel a bunch that I've played, and it's Bug Fables. Love it.
Nice.
Great game. I'm a huge fan of old school Paper Mario. They haven't made a new Paper Mario in a long time. They're actually, I think, isn't there another indie game coming out based off of the original Paper Mario games? I thought I heard that recently.
Saw something at E3, like the something Ghost or something.
Yeah,
like
there's another one coming out.
Aesthetic, yeah.
But Bug Fables came out, I think, about a year ago, 2 years now, maybe. Made by a company called Moonsprout, and they just did a phenomenal job. Rachel and I are still slowly plucking away at that, but it's pretty, like, surprisingly, I'd say, difficult game, but also just really, really fun. And I think a lot of what they implemented in Bug Fables would have been the logical next step had they continued the Paper Mario series in the RPG style. You know, you get 3 partners now. You can do. They kind of have like in. You know how in like Mario and Luigi, you can do those sort of brother moves. It's kind of like that. You have a couple moves that some of the characters can do together and whatnot, and you know, they have badges, the whole thing. They don't call them badges; they're called medals. And I don't know, the story's really good. The characters are cute. It has that aesthetic, but it has that Paper Mario sort of, I would say, the skeleton of the game is like Paper Mario, but it's got its own, you know, it's fleshed out in its own way, is what I would say. And it's really, really beautifully done game, I think.
I still gotta play that, actually.
I think you should. If you really like the first 2 Paper Mario games, you'd really like it. I think it holds up better than anything that's been released since Thousand Year Door, if you're talking about just the Paper Mario series. But just on its own as a game, it's a really fun little RPG, and simple enough where I think a person who isn't an RPG person could get into it, but also challenging enough where, you know, it's not just some simple game. So I've had a lot of fun with it, especially playing with Rachel, and yeah, love that game.
I wonder if that game's on PC as well.
Yep, it is. It was released on Steam first, so you could probably find it pretty cheap.
Yeah,
I think it's on all platforms now.
I just go for Steam usually because it's cheaper. That's all.
Yeah, I totally would go that route. It was actually given to me for my birthday by Rachel. She's like, oh, check out. It was funny. She goes, hey, check out this Tetris match that I won. I was like, great, and I look and I'm like, oh, you got me Bug Fables, thanks. It was cool. It was a cool birthday present.
That's a good way of doing it. Nice. Yeah, I mean, I love those old Paper Mario games. I still remember when I went back and downloaded Paper Mario on the Wii Virtual Console, and it was such a trip playing that game in like a higher resolution. But it also just had been like so long since I played it. And like I remember, like I was like pretty stoned the first time I downloaded it and played it again in like years. And I was just like, this is so amazing. It's like a classic Mario tale, man. It's just amazing. It's so great. It was just like blowing me away.
Oh, that's great. I love when indie games give you what you they make the game that everybody's been waiting for, that, you know, some developers, you know, the thing I mean, maybe this is a bad example, but like the Bloodstained games, people have been wanting a Castlevania for years now. And I realize they're made by Igarashi, who did like Symphony of the Night and stuff like that, but you're not getting any classic style Castlevania games from Konami, so it's great that there's another avenue to play that kind of game. Or even in recent years, there's not really been a Metroid until Metroid Dread. You're getting tons of, I mean, Metroidvanias are, I guess there's a reason I mentioned those two, but Metroidvanias are flourishing in terms of indie games.
Ukulele is another good example.
Ukulele, that's a great example. Yeah, that's the rare game, the rare platformer we've all been wanting. Great game, by the way, Ukulele. But yeah, I just loved when these indie developers, you could tell they're fans, and it's like, they're not going to give us our Banjo Kazooie. We'll make our own, you know.
Yeah, I love that, like, people who used to just be fans are just going out and, like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as much of a thing as it used to be, but like there was a time, like probably 5 or 6 years ago, when like every week there was some Kickstarter being made where it's like, we're gonna make this classic game and we're gonna bring back the spirit. And it was like a really cool time for a while.
I think perhaps, and this is another one that isn't on my list. I should have done an honorable mention for this one too. Perhaps the best example of that would be Undertale, because there hasn't been a new Mother in since what, 2006, I think Mother 3 came out or whatever. So, and it's, if any game would show the developer, show, in this case Nintendo, that the Mother series is still viable, I mean, that's another game where its popularity just exploded, I think it's dwindled maybe in last year or two, but still, I remember Undertale was everywhere, the Sans memes, just never ending.
I know Deltarune, I believe is it still in, like, there was only one episode released, I believe.
I think so,
I
yeah.
think it's still, I could be wrong, I'm not sure.
I haven't really heard much about Deltarune. I also haven't really actively been looking at it, but anyway, I'm sorry I'm going off track there, but
I'm sorry. Yeah.
The bug Fables kind of made me think of that, just developers, who kind of take that into their own hands. I like that. It's cool.
Yeah, me too. Good choice.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is I feel a running theme here, actually. It's another pretty simplistic game, but it's like it's like easy to learn, hard to master. It's called Super Hexagon.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that game. Yeah.
I owned it on, like, so many platforms now. I have it on Steam, iOS, Android, and it's a really good, like, tablet or phone game, but it's also really fun to just kind of like zone out and play with your mouse or your keyboard as well, or a controller. And you literally just control a little triangle. First you're going around a triangle, then it becomes a square, and it just becomes more and more sided until you get to hexagon. And there's like lines coming towards it, like circling around. It's like really trippy, and you just have to kind of like position the triangle to get through the lines. It's almost just like a really fast maze that you have to get through.
Sounds like a sophisticated version of Quicks. You remember that game?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I used to play Quicks, like
Quicks, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, Quicks or Kicks. I actually, there was like this weird Pac-Man, like / Kicks fusion that like flash game that I used to play like way too much at work when I was at the call center. But yeah, it's kind of like that. It's just like very basic shapes and incredibly good. Again, like it's like 8-bit chiptune, but it's just like if there was like 64 channels and it's just like crazy techno music. It's like really intense chiptune.
Nice.
But it's just like one of those games that just never gets old. Like you can play it for 5 minutes or you can play it for half an hour.
That's the thing about simpler games, though. To me, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, you don't need a sophisticated game. Look at Tetris. Look at Pong. You don't need a really, really complicated, sophisticated game for it to be really good. Sometimes those simple games, something like that, is just, keep you entertained for hours.
That's another one that I found through a streamer. The main game I would watch him play is actually my number 1, shall say. But his name's Cobalt Streak, and he used to play Super Hexagon just like between games on his stream.
Nice.
I was like, oh, that looks fun. And then I looked it up on Steam, and it's like $3, and I got it on sale for like $1. Best dollar I ever spent.
That's awesome. Okay. I guess I'll go to my number 2. My number 2 is a game that you introduced me to many moons ago, and it was I originally actually played it on the Wii U, and you probably know what this is. It's Shovel Knight.
Ah, nice.
Love Shovel Knight. I haven't really played what is it? The Plague Knight one. I can't remember the names. Sorry, it's kind of late here.
There's a King Knight and
there's a King Knight, Plague Knight, and
was it Spectre?
Spectre Knight. Yeah, Spectre Tournament is one of them. I haven't played the other ones, but the original Shovel Knight was great. I had it on the Wii U. I used to play it all the time. Cool mix of, it gives you that classic NES vibe. It kind of mixes, Mega Man, I think like Mega Man, maybe Zelda 2, that kind of, those, particularly those two games is what it reminds me of. Maybe a little bit of Metroid kind of feel to it, but simple game, fun platformer. The graphics are wonderful. I think had that come out on the NES, it'd probably be hailed as like the best NES game ever because it's just. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What you were saying.
I was gonna say, I specifically remember when they were making that game, like they went out of their way to like limit the graphics to what the NES would have been capable of.
Yeah.
But then they still made it capable of like showing more colors because they wanted to still like evoke the feel of those games, but still kind of like bring more color to it and like with modern technology.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really great idea because like you were still limiting yourself to the resolution, but not to the actual technological limitations.
Yeah, that game, it looks beautiful, and like you said, there's so many great environments in it. The music is wonderful. I really love the music. Check out his piano cover, by the way, of what is it called? Take Up Thy Shovel or whatever. The story is just kind of quirky and funny. It could be a Nintendo game, and it's just fun. I don't know. I love platformers. I love the mechanics with the shovel. It's really creative. Like just some of the things, especially like the downstrike that you can do. I love that, bouncing off enemies and stuff.
Very, DuckTales.
yeah, that's the other game. You're right, DuckTales. And yeah, I don't know, just a fun game. If you haven't played Shovel Knight, I mean, come on, get the treasure trove. So.
Yeah, totally. I think I might have played Spectre Tournament. I think that's it. But yeah, that's yet another composer that started out as a remixer, Jake Kaufman.
Yeah.
He did Shovel Knight.
Another.
He also did a bunch of games.
Sorry, what'd you say there?
The developer Way Forward.
Yes, of course. Yep.
Mm-hmm. He did the soundtracks for like every game that he made almost.
Oh wow! Okay, nice. Yeah. Another. Sorry to little off track here, but another honorable mention, just because we were talking about Shovel Knight, Steam World Dig, I think is really great too.
Definitely that and the sequel.
Yeah, I haven't really played the sequel, but I played the first one quite a bit, and I really liked it. So, different game from Shovel Knight, but they both involve digging. So.
Sure. All right. I guess we're on to number 2. My number 2, I can't even count the number. I think it might be my like 3rd most played game on Steam. I have like 150 hours or something in this. It's Spelunky.
Nice. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Which is like kind of, I think, one of the games that really like introduced the world to the concept of a roguelike, or of a roguelike because it's not a roguelike. It's more of a platformer with roguelike elements. But that game's just so incredibly well designed. There's actually a really great documentary about it that interviews the creator, Derek Yu, and he kind of explains how like the game isn't completely randomized. He just like kind of creates tiles and then the game stitches them together to make a level. And just like the way all the physics and systems like work with each other, the way you have to learn so much, like it will take you so, like I feel like I just said I put 150 hours into this game. I don't feel like I've even scratched the surface. Like I feel like I'm still terrible at this game.
Yeah.
Like it takes so long to master this game, but you just get into this flow and this groove. Once you get good at it, it just feels great. Like the controls in that game remind me legit of like Super Mario World. They're that smooth. Like, and that's like the highest compliment I can give something. Basically, it's just like the art style is great no matter which one you play. Like there was an 8-bit one with chiptune music, but then they like made an HD version of that on Xbox Live Arcade. Eventually, they brought that to PC, and they just made a sequel last year.
Oh, Splunky,
And
yeah, Splunky 2.
yeah, which is actually on the moon, which is great. But like, not just the single player, like you can play co-op as well through the randomized dungeons. But there's also a really amazing like competitive multiplayer. Oh, I just lost my screen. There you are. That's like, I would compare it to like a little bit of Smash Brothers / Towerfall, a little bit of Bomberman. It's
Nice.
just like so good. Like they managed to create such a wonderful little party game with like really cool items, and there's like you can turn items on and off just like in Smash Brothers. You can kind of set different rules, like when you have like more than two people, if one of you dies, you can still become a ghost and float around, and then you can like blow on people, and it will like send them flying. So you can like blow someone into a spike pit even
I
after
love
you've
that. I
died.
love that in games.
Yeah, there's just so many great little touches, and like there's like a damsel in distress in the game that you can pick up for extra points, but you can also make her like a big burly dude or a pug if you want to, which I think is great. So
That's
then
another
instead
game
of hearing
that's
like a lady screaming for help, you'll just hear this little pug going, oh, oh, like waiting for you to save him.
that's another game like that one's kind of like low key. I don't want to say low key popular, but there's people who are really, really into that game. My neighbor, I remember talking about it. I was like, oh yeah. He's like, oh, he's like, Splunky's my favorite game. He's talking to me
Yeah,
about it.
I remember this one guy on this video game show I used to watch was just like obsessed with it. He was doing the daily challenges all the time. And then when I really got into Twitch, it was like everybody was playing, especially once the PC version of Spelunky came out. It was just
Hmm.
like huge on Twitch for a while.
Hmm.
Like all the people I watched were playing it. And even like when I used to play it on Giant Bomb as a recurring thing too. And Patrick Klepek was on there. He used to do Spelunking with scoops. I was a big fan of that as well. So I mean, for a while that game was just everywhere, and for good reason.
Very nice pick. I'm kind of not surprised you picked it, but still a great pick. Um, my number one, I think you're gonna find kind of obvious. I don't know. I've always gush about this game, or rather these games, and that's the Ori games, which I'm a huge Metroidvania fan. I'm a huge Metroid fan and a Castlevania fan. And to me, you know, there's a treasure trove of amazing Metroidvanias: Axiom Verge, Hollow Knight. Um, uh,
Guacamelee is another
yeah,
good one.
thank you. Yeah, Guacamelee. There's a whole bunch of them. The Ori games really, and I got the first one for $3, so it was like,
Nice.
yeah, it was great. Um, the Ori games, I would say, really, really, maybe you'd have to say the first one because I know, I think it was like, now, actually, I actually don't, not sure. Was it during development that the first Ori, was that they were kind of purchased by Microsoft, or was that later?
I think it was after that. I think it was a timed exclusive on the 360 when the first one came out.
Okay, that's what I
And
thought.
then at some point between the first one and the second one coming out, I believe Microsoft bought Moon Studios.
So for those purposes, I'll just say the first game because the second game, I guess, technically would be, a Microsoft game. The amount of love and attention to detail that they've given to that game, we'll go with the first one with the Blind Forest. Just amazing. I mean, and I think I've said it before. Aesthetically, probably my favorite game ever. I'm thinking games because of the two Ori games, but whatever. I'm just gonna talk about both of them. But aesthetically, probably my two favorite games ever. It's like Disney meets Studio Ghibli. So bright and colorful. The foregrounds are beautiful. The story is very heartwarming and touching. Very challenging game as well. It's got those great Metroidvania mechanics that I love. That exploration, a lot of backtracking, that whole thing. And I don't know. I just really, really, really love the Ori games. I had a really great time playing through both of them, and I don't know. I think they're I think in terms of quality, they really step up. Like they're, especially considering the first one really didn't have any major studio backing. I think they really stepped it up for indie developers in general. Just what a smaller team can do, what they can achieve. I think it's pretty incredible what they did, especially with that first game. Just
Yeah, I
amazing.
I've still never finished the first one. I bought the second one on Steam, and I don't believe I've even installed it and played it yet. I should really do that, though.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, they're time-consuming games, but and I didn't mention the music. That's another thing. The soundtrack is just, man, awesome. A lot of like light piano and just
The pianos.
gets really
I gotta go
epic.
back.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just was saying, I really got to go back to those games. I know
Yeah,
we talk about them.
they're wonderful. I really like it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll say Ori and the Blind Forest, my number one.
All right. Um, Coincidentally, my number one is kind of multiple games as well. It's not like I mentioned earlier the stream of Cobalt Streak. If anyone, I doubt anyone would be, but if you happen to be, he's a big Binding of Isaac streamer.
Oh, okay.
And the Binding of Isaac, I didn't really end up getting into it because somebody recommended it or because I saw a good review or because of streamers. I legit just liked Super Meat Boy so much that I just bought the Binding of Isaac the day it came out. I also just liked Edmund McMillan. I had played some of his other games. He made a lot of Flash games that were just like had a really cool art style and really good game design and sensibilities. Plus, it was a homage to the original Legend of Zelda.
Oh
So
yeah.
like, I was just like, yeah, I'm getting this. And it was the first time I ever really played a roguelike. And it just like completely hooked me. Like it really got me into that genre of games. It's basically just like the original Legend of Zelda, but it's like kind of a twin stick shooter. But it has completely randomized dungeons, completely randomized items, and there's just so many items and equipment and like different modifiers you can get in the game. It's like almost infinite the amount of different combinations you can have to like outfit your different abilities. Like you basically use your tears as a weapon, like you're shooting your tears.
Yeah, I
at
remember
these, like,
thinking that was really weird the first time I saw that.
It has a weird story for sure. You're like a child whose mother is ultra religious and who's trying to sacrifice him to God, and so you're hiding from her in your basement, which is full of like crazy monsters. I'm just like descending further into this basement. It's a very strange story. Kind of like the art style isn't for everyone, I would say that, but it's also just super unique. Like there's nothing else like it at all, and the amount of time and effort that McMillan has put into just like constantly updating the game, like trying to make it as good as possible, trying to do right by fans and fix things that they don't like. Like he's literally completely like he first made the game in Flash, and because the scope of the game ended up getting so big that it was basically too complicated to run in Flash, and it would just start crashing all the time because he kept adding so much content to it. So then he completely rebuilt the game with like a Super Nintendo pixel art aesthetic and called it Rebirth. And he's also made like 3 expansions now for Rebirth. Like he just keeps adding stuff. Even like there was a mod that people released for the game, and he just like hired those people and brought them on, and they like made the mod official into like an actual expansion. And like I've found myself constantly going back to that. I played it for years, like on a recurring basis. I used to watch people stream it every night. Like, I was just so into that game for a while.
I remember
And it
watching
was one of
Walt
those
play it
games
a
that just-
ton. He was like super into it.
yeah.
For quite a while there. Yeah, I used to watch him all the time. Really cool game. Very
I
unique.
even used to watch like races. Like people would do Isaac races. There was like a Binding of Isaac Racing League. It was pretty cool, especially because it was all randomized, right? So you like they would never know like how like what they were going to get, and people would be like way far ahead of each other, but it would just be constantly going like this because you'd never know what was going to happen. So it's of all the games, indie games that have ever been made, like just in terms of sheer entertainment hours between like watching it be streamed and playing it myself and just discovering all the secrets, like looking up the wiki and stuff, like it's just I have to hand it to that game for sure.
Nice. It's a great pick. Great number one. Another one that's another one that was, I don't know how much in recent years, but again, I recall being really popular for a little while. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely very unique game.
Yeah.
I used to, like I said, I used to watch Walt play it, and he would get like really, really into it. The first time I saw him like using your tears as weapons, I was like, what is this game?
Yeah, it's strange.
It's cool.
It's definitely got a weird sense of humor.
Well, if that's all you got, that's our top 5 indie games, guys. Well, top 10 collectively, 5 each. That was
Just
really
like
fun,
all the-
man.
Just
Sorry?
we must have mentioned like 10 or 15 other games there.
I mean, again, it's so broad, you know? I mean, you sent me a list of what you had. You're like, I think I'm narrowing it down. I'm like, there's like 20 games there. So, I don't know. But that was really fun. I gotta be honest with you guys. Of all the stuff that we do on the Kuroda Mob news stuff, I like this stuff the most. I like just kind of randomly talking about games we love, doing these little like top 5s and things, and it's been really fun. So I am sad to say that this will be the last episode before my hiatus. Maybe we'll try to open with something like this unless there's some big news, but for now, I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but I'm stepping aside for a little while, and you're talking about maybe continuing something similar like this on your channel, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of retired from my channel about 2 years ago. I never said it was going to be a break. I was legitimately just never planning on doing YouTube again. But I'm kind of getting the itch to do it again now. I've made a couple of Minecraft videos with my stepdaughter, and that was a lot of fun.
Check
and
those
I would
out.
like to get back to live streaming now that I actually have the internet that's capable of doing it. Because I always just found that it like incentivized me to play more games outside my comfort zone and to try new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that sense of like camaraderie you get.
Oh
with,
yeah,
like,
it's
having a
great.
chat. But
I used to love watching your live streams too, especially before bed. You'd be like playing some chill indie game. That's how I discovered a lot of these games. So something like Death Road to Canada, or like I was saying to you, Tower 57, or I remember you playing Shadow Complex, and I was really impressed with it. A couple other ones, but yeah. So check out. I'll have a link below to James's YouTube page. I also have it on my channels tab on my channel. So if you guys want to see more discussion videos, news, things like that, sounds like James is going to be doing some on his channel. And you said your friend Phil, who joined us for the post E3 roundtable, will probably be joining you, right?
yeah, we were hoping to do some kind of like a recurring podcast style news show, maybe every couple of weeks or something.
Great.
Just kind of like what we've been doing here,
Cool.
basically.
I will also be
especially-
tuning into that.
Yeah, I mean, especially if there's like a Nintendo Direct or whatever, like Game Awards.
Well, if there's a Nintendo Direct, look out for me on an episode of that as well, because I'll probably wanna talk about that. Or I can imagine me wanting to do something around the time of Metroid Dread's release and stuff. That being said, I'm not gonna say I'm not saying this is the end of this. I'd like to come back to it, but probably once I come back from hiatus and stuff, we'll talk about stuff. And even if you continue to do the news thing with him and we just did stuff like this, I'd be fine with splitting it up that way, or we'll discuss it off camera and stuff. But either way, we'll be back in some capacity, and in the meantime, check out James's channel, Bacon Mob.
We'll be back someday.
Yeah, we will be back at some point. That aside, James, it's been really fun doing this. We've been doing this for about since the beginning of the year or so. I think is when I originally approached you about it. I've honestly had a blast doing it, and I'm looking forward to reconvening at some point. So thanks, bud. It's been great.
It has been great. I mean, yeah, we go back further. If you want to see more discussions, with me
Yeah,
and Rob,
check out our old discussions. Yeah, check out our old discussions on his channel. We have a bunch of old ones that I kind of want to rewatch.
Yeah, me too. I wanna...
Yeah. But alright, guys, thanks again for watching. What are your top 5 indie games? Put them in the comments below. I don't know.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Nice.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Peace. That was really funny.